Hi everyone, Stepan here, welcome to game 63. While we're waiting for the game, I'm going to show you a new board I got a few weeks ago. I hope you like it. So I got a GoChess Lite modern board and I'm absolutely delighted both with the box and with the design. Normally I wouldn't get a board that's not classical, but I have too many classical boards with normal pieces. GoChess also offers the same GoChess Lite but with a classical design. So it's a digital chessboard with an AI coach that gives you hints. You can enable it to hint at the best move. So I've just started a match against the AI and it wants to go e4. So it circles the e pawn in pink. It says e4 is the best move. Now I'm waiting for the AI to make their own move. They played e5 and now it's going to let me know that, well, a knight move is the best move, so assume knight f3. Yeah, so if you're a beginner player, GoChess Lite can give you hints, and that's a great thing. So I'm going to start another game, and as you can see, before you start the game, you can choose the hint settings. You can choose whether you want to be given information on what the best piece to move is, what the best moves with that piece would be, and you can also get blunder alerts. So let's start. Okay, so as you can see here, it's highlighted pink that I should play e4. I would disagree with that, but okay. And then when I put the pawn, when I pick the pawn up, it's highlighted in pink that e4 is the best move. So let's go e4. Now let's see what black does. Black played e5. And now it's highlighting the knight in pink. So you get different types of alerts. So for example, knight f3. What's black gonna do? Black plays knight c6. Okay, and wow, moving the a pawn, I would disagree with that. So let's say I pick up the knight. It's going to highlight the blunders in red. So for example, if I play knight h4, that loses the knight. If I play knight g5, that loses the knight. So again, if you're a beginner, different types of highlights can be very, very helpful. You can also, of course, play online. So let's say I want to go online, I want to go to Lichess. I can also go to chess.com. I've connected my account HPY and I can find the match. I can invite people to play against me. So you can basically do everything with this board. There are two things I really like about it. Firstly, it's tournament sized, and that's very important to me. I don't like to train with boards that aren't tournament sized. So this feels like I can do actual training on it. Now, okay, if I want actual classical pieces, I have 10 sets, I can just replace them. The second thing, the pieces are really heavy and I love that. So this knight weighs, I want to say 15 grams, 10-15 grams, and that's a lot, and they feel really good in your hand. The design is great, the board is very simple to use, so what you do is you just download the app, connect the board to your phone in a second with Bluetooth, and that's it. And you can play against the AI, you can play with people face to face, you can play online. Now GoChess offers 3 different boards. They offer GoChess Lite in 2 versions. So this is the modern one with this futuristic design, let's call it that. They also have a classical board, which you can see on the screen now, and they have a mini board. So if you want to travel around and you know, take it with you, that's going to be your choice. So if you'd like to check out GoChess, follow the link in the description. I believe they have a discount either for Black Friday or for Christmas, so maybe you can get it a bit cheaper. It's also less pricey than the other boards on the market. I think it's way less expensive than many other boards, and yeah, I like it. I can actually train with this board. Thank you guys, let's go back to the video. Okay, we have a game against Amarov 123. So if you'd like to check out the GoChess Lite, follow the link in the description. As I said, I really like the board. Okay, I'm gonna be allowing the Nimzo. I won my last game in the Caro-Kann. Okay, I'm gonna go for the exchange. I won my last game in the Caro-Kann, and my opponent played a line I've never seen before. And as for the Queen's Gambit decline exchange variation, there are a few lines that concern me. I will usually go for a minority attack. So in the Carlsbad structure after c6, if c6 is played, and it should be, White's usual plan is b4, b5, undermining the c-pawn. So I will usually go for that. But in some cases, in some positions, that doesn't work out well. And then I find myself struggling. So yeah, I'm gonna try to play better now. Castles, that's fine. Still, c6 is one of the most common moves in this position. Okay, I'm always happy to see h6, and I mentioned that multiple times. The reason I like seeing h6 is that it weakens the g6 square. So one of the most common plans black has in this line is rook e8, knight d7, knight f8, knight g6. And that simply doesn't work with the pawn on h6, because I'm in time to play knight f3, knight e5, and then of course knight g6 just loses a pawn. That being said, h6 is a fine move. There's nothing else wrong with it, and in itself it's not bad. Okay, now this line, I think mixing bishop e6 and h6 could be a mistake. The reason for that is that I have knight e2, knight f4. So for example, bishop d3, knight d7, knight e2, rook e8, knight f4, and I get the bishop pair, and g6 becomes incredibly weak. So I'm gonna go bishop d3 first to make sure I don't block in my knight, block in my bishop, and then I'm gonna go knight e2, knight f4. So this is a target, and in many exchange variation lines, black plays for knight e2 anyway, because that gives, sorry, white, that gives white the option to go f3, e4. So I may be combining a couple of plans here. It's not really clear how black should save the bishop now, because of course bishop f5 loses the bishop, bishop g4 ultimately loses a pawn because of h3 and g4 and taking on g6 twice. And my opponent isn't in time to play rook e8, knight f8 to give the bishop a square. The only option could be knight e4, but doesn't that just lose a pawn? Yes, it does. And of course on knight f4, if my opponent plays g5, that's even worse, because I take on e6 with tempo on the queen. My opponent has to recapture, and then the pawn is on g5 for no reason. This could be my favorite slow weapon in my white repertoire. So I usually enjoy the openings I get with white. So if I go knight f4, c4, bishop e2, there's no bishop g4, because I take on e7, take on d5, or just take on d5. So I feel like this doesn't work. Of course, my opponent can take on d4, but I think I'm happy with that IQP position. Knight f4, cd4, ed4. Yeah, I'm playing knight f4. c4 doesn't worry me, cd4 doesn't worry me, g5 doesn't worry me. I think we're fine. Oh, unless g5 works. Maybe I blundered. No, it shouldn't work. Maybe it does work. So c4, bishop e2. No, it doesn't work. c4, bishop e2, g5, there's knight e6. Yeah. Okay, no, it's okay. It's okay. It's getting complicated. I don't like that, but there isn't much I can do. The reason I like this opening is because it's calm and there aren't too many tactical tricks for either side, and white simply has a slightly more comfortable position. But it often gets very sharp very quickly. Also on c4, knight e6, cd3. What? Well, I have not expected this. I mean, on CD, I'm still fine. On c4, I'm still fine. So I'm not sure. I mean, not that rook c8 is a bad move, but I think there were more pressing issues. So now I can take on e6 and play bishop g6 if c4. So let's do that. I mean, I know that I'm giving my opponent e5 as a resource, but that seems okay to me. So should I castle or should I get my queen out of the way? I'm worried about e5. So I'm considering playing f4. But that could be problematic due to cd4, ed4. So castles e5, d5, knight e5. I do have bishop f6, followed by, well, something if my opponent takes on d3. I am gonna castle. I'm kind of scared to leave my king in the center. I'm not afraid of c4, I'm afraid of e5. Oh. That's okay. Although there is e5 now, but I have queen a4. Queen a4 doesn't seem too good. I mean, I could take on e5 and on d4 take on f6. I think this is a mistake, because I can go queen d2 or rook d1, and let's say I go rook a d1. on queen d4 I can just play bishop h7. Yeah, so I don't think that works. Also the knight on f6 is now pinned. So on e5, yeah, no, I cannot take on d5, but still. The only thing is, I don't think I want my a rook on d1 because I want to go rook c1. Also, I want to go rook e1. So do I want my rooks on cd or on de? I think de. So I'm gonna go rook ad1. Queen d4 loses the queen. Okay. Now I can go bishop g6, preventing e5, preventing queen d4, I think. So let's do that. Although my bishop could be hanging if the pawn moves and the knight moves. Still, let's go for it. I need to defend my d-pawn. I also want to get my queen out of the way. I want to go queen e2 to play against e5. Not that e5 is playable, but I still want to go queen e2. Just to unpin, just to give myself the option to play rook fe1, put pressure on e6, keep playing against e5. I don't know, if e5 isn't played, then what's my opponent's plan? Because the knight on f6 cannot really move. e5 loses a pawn. Because if e5, d5, knight e5, bishop f6, if knight g6, then bishop e7, and on knight e7, I could go rook e1, and on d4 take on e7, I don't know. But one thing is certain, as soon as I play queen e2 or rook fe1, e5 isn't happening. And if e5 isn't happening, this is basically a bad French. Okay, or sorry, I meant to say a good French. There's no light squared bishop, so e5 isn't absolutely essential, but you still have to get rid of the weakness. So that's funny, my opponent has a French structure from the Queen's Gambit declined. I haven't even considered this. But couldn't I just go queen e2? Okay, queen e2, rook d4, queen d4, queen e6, queen takes h4, queen takes e7. What's that position like? Seems okay. I mean, I can defend the pawn with queen d2. Not that I want to, because that allows e5. So let's see, queen d2, e5, d5, knight e5, double attacking the bishop. and the bishop on h4. So no, that's not playable. I'm gonna have to play queen e2. So queen e2, rook d4, rook d4, queen d4, queen e6. Can my opponent avoid the bishop trade? There's no rook e8 because of bishop e8. Yeah, I think queen e2 is okay. So rook d4 critical. e5 not as much. Because now on e5, d5, knight e5, there's queen e5, and the bishop on e7 is hanging. I don't like the fact that my bishop on h4 isn't defended, but there isn't much I can do. Of course, I didn't want to take on f6. Oh, queen e2 allows another thing, bishop b1, and maybe a queen bishop battery with either queen c2 or queen d3. That's interesting. Knight e4 just loses a piece because the rook on c4 is hanging. Also loses the bishop on e7, so I take on e7, and then, yeah, knight e4 makes no sense. Disregard what I said. I'm just trying to look for candidate moves other than e5 or rook d4. So e5 doesn't work. Rook d4, queen d4, queen e6. What can my opponent do if not queen takes bishop? I don't know. So let's say queen h4, queen e7. Let's say queen g5, attacking my bishop on g6. Bishop b1, rook e8, queen d6, maybe? Seems okay. I mean, neither side should really have a significant advantage, but black does have this passed pawn on d5, and if it becomes mobile, that could be an issue. Although with the queen on d6, d4 always loses a pawn because I still have a rook on d1. And if I could play bishop g3, then we're talking. Then e5 is never happening, my bishop is safe. Although I am unpinning the f6 knight. Okay. Now the knight is unpinned anyway. The bishop isn't hanging. The e-pawn is. So if I go bishop g3, then rook d4, queen d4, queen e6 is still the same thing, except that on queen g5, bishop b1, rook e8, well, I still have queen d6. That seems okay. So bishop g3 seems sensible, just saving my bishop. So in all these lines, my bishop isn't loose. And if my opponent doesn't do anything now, then I'll consider defending d4. For the moment, it's still a trade for the e6 pawn. I don't know. I feel like my position is much more comfortable because my king isn't in trouble. My opponent's king seems weak. Also, the d6 square is extremely weak, so maybe my opponent just goes bishop c7 now. Although they would have to recapture with the rook. Okay, they went in for a trade. So takes. Yeah, seems okay. I mean, I don't really have an alternative. What am I saying? I don't have a rook on d1 anymore. That was stupid. So the d pawn is mobile. Okay, the knight on f6 is still pinned. And am I not threatening to go bishop d6? I am. So on queen g5, which is the only move that prevents bishop d6, can I go bishop d6 anyway? Queen g6, bishop f8, knight f8. Not really. That's two pieces for a rook, and I don't have queen e8. I do have queen c8, but there's always queen e8. No. So on queen g5, I don't go bishop d6. But if my opponent doesn't play queen g5, then doesn't bishop d6 win? That's a strange move. Doesn't queen d6 win material now? How does my opponent save the game? Queen d6, attacking the rook. Queen d6, can my opponent do anything? Maybe knight d7? Okay, I'm just playing queen d6 because I don't see a way out other than knight d7. Maybe I'm missing something, but I don't think I am. Don't I just have rook d1 at the end if knight d7? Of course, if rook g8, I go bishop f7. And knight e4 doesn't work, because if knight e4, then queen d5. This could just be losing for my opponent. I mean, the rook is loose. Maybe they didn't notice, but... And also the rook has no squares because of bishop f7. What's the alternative to knight cd7? On knight fd7, I just take on d5, yeah. Now, what about rook d1? So rook d1, knight e4, I just take it. And the pawn is pinned because the queen is hanging. So queen takes. Yeah, no, knight e4 doesn't work. I'm just winning after rook d1. Am I not? Yes, I am. Oh, maybe queen g4. Oh, there may be queen g4. Wait, can I also go bishop f5? Preventing queen g4? How does my opponent defend the knight if I go bishop f5? Knight e4 still just loses the queen. Or the knight. Sorry, bishop f5. How does my opponent defend? Rook f7 doesn't work because of bishop e6. Yeah, I'm playing bishop f5. This is very tempting. Because the knight defends the rook and the knight defends the knight. So I don't see queen a4 isn't possible. Queen g4 isn't possible. Rook f7 isn't possible. So is that it? Oh, rook f7, bishop e6. There may be bishop e7. Oh, ho, 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 ho. I didn't see that. Yeah. On rook f7, there may be bishop e7. But I can always play rook d1. If rook f7. I can throw in rook d1. Queen b6 also fails, because I just take on d7. Queen b6. Okay. So I was gonna take on d7. Queen takes. D6 is forced. I play bishop d6. My opponent takes on d7. And then I play knight takes d5 and I'm just up a pawn. Is that correct? Seems correct. Let's just double check. So bishop takes d7, queen takes d6, bishop takes d6, knight takes d7, knight takes d5. My pieces are tripled up on the d file. So after bishop somewhere, am I in trouble? Maybe. But I'm gonna go for that anyway. Also the rook is attacked, so my opponent's gonna have to do something first. My opponent has to trade queens now, I think. Because if knight d7, I just take knight d5. Sorry, my pieces are doubled up on the d file, not tripled up. Excuse me, if knight d7, I just take the knight. Stupid. So queen d6 is absolutely forced. No, wait, this just loses because the rook on f8 is hanging. What? Yeah, okay, no. Stupid. Queen d6, bishop d6, knight d7, bishop f8, game over. I'm up an exchange on the pawn. But I forgot that the rook on f8 was hanging. 2 in a row. Okay. I don't think I can mess this up anymore. Seems losing for my opponent. And also they have 3 seconds on the clock. Okay, that just drops the knight. So I'm just gonna take. Okay. So I'm up a knight. The knight on c3 is hanging. So I'm guessing I can just take on d5. Perhaps. What else? Oh, I can also play bishop e5. Oh, bishop e5 is interesting. But that just walks into another pin. So bishop e5, I'm guessing bishop f6 has to be played. And then I take on d5 with tempo. Yeah, I'm gonna do that. Although I am undefending f2, is that an issue? I don't think so. Let's go bishop e5. Because that threatens mate. The thing is, after bishop f6, rook f6, yeah, knight d5 is a tempo on the rook. So my opponent doesn't have time for queen b2. All right. I shouldn't rush with knight e7. Well, maybe I should. I mean, there's no sensible defense. Queen f7. Well, there's queen f7. There is that. Okay, slow down. Don't lose to a tactic or something. So knight e7, queen f7. I cannot move my rook. Okay, so let's force the issue with this rook first. Let's gain a tempo this way, unpin, and then decide. Am I hanging rook f2? No, I'm not. Because now, once my queen is unpinned, knight e7 is stronger. Because I can move the knight on queen f7, and I have knight g6 check because the square is defended. Okay, my opponent flagged. Okay, good. Let's go. Okay, let's see. I'm not too familiar with what my opponent did. So at this point, I know c6, and I know knight bd7. I also know h6, but I don't think it's as good. So I think c6 is the best move, okay? And now bishop e6, I think, is a slight inaccuracy. I mean, I really don't like this move. Because it allows bishop d3, knight e2, knight f4. So let's see. Bishop d3. Let's turn on the engine because I don't know the position. Black is slightly better after c5. Wow, okay. So let's see, c5. I would have gone knight e2. I would have played bishop f5. Okay, seems okay. I mean, there's b5, b4 coming. Okay, so my opponent played knight bd7, knight e2, c5. Knight f4 is okay. Okay, takes, castles, takes. Queen b6 is the best move, that's surprising. Okay, I played rook a1, covering the d pawn, that's good. What? Where are we? Okay, rook ad1, king h8, bishop g6 best. b3? What does b3 do? Queen e2 is okay, has to be okay. Bishop g3, saving the bishop. Oh, I had bishop d6 immediately. Why didn't I see that? I saw it move too late. Knight c5. Yeah, knight c5 has to be a blunder. Queen d6. Knight c d7. Bishop f5. Let's go. Okay, yeah. I was expecting rook f7. And then I would have thrown in rook d1. So I actually played pretty well. I saw the tactics. Bishop e5 best. Yeah. I mean, I made no mistakes. I feel like I made no mistakes. Okay, let's see. 0 mistakes. Let's go. I think this is my second perfect game. Although I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm really happy. I mean, so I made one mistake, not playing bishop d6. So where is that? Yeah, here. I could have gone bishop d6, winning more material. I saw it move too late. But queen e6 is what I had been calculating for ages. So yeah, other than that, I think I made no mistakes. Okay, 5 points. Let's go. Thank you guys for watching. Stay tuned for more chess. Bye-bye.